Hello, it is Jason from AVPro. Beautiful winter here in St. Petersburg, Florida. With me today is Mr. Jim Burns. Jim, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jason.
Good, good. I'll do a little introduction of Jim. Jim came on to our team about a year ago, Jim, now, or how long has it been?
Almost a year. Last
Yeah,
March,
yeah.
early March.
Jim, Jim's been in the industry for a really long time. He's done a lot of really cool work in the home theater space, especially with projectors, working directly with manufacturers. He's done some consulting work. So about a year ago, we brought Jim on as our training director. And as most of you guys know, I've been pretty much the one doing all the trainings and traveling and going to visit you guys and stuff like that. That's not going to change. In fact, I have more help now. So this is really cool. Jim and I are going to do some classes together, and just really happy to have him on the team. He's a great guy and pretty funny, if I may say. So yeah, so Jim, yeah, I'll kick it over to you if you want to tell everybody about the PowerPoint today, what we're going to talk about.
All right, sure. Well, obviously the tease was find out about a home entertainment network. So we'll talk about that. And this is a little different too. So we're obviously a manufacturer. We have a lot of our own equipment. We do AV over IP, a lot of HDMI distribution through the house. But we're not going to talk about really any specific products. At the end, we'll do a little demo that's based off of our MXNet system. But what this is really about is getting you to think about the way you pre-wire a home and you set a home up in the future. And this is going to allow you to be more flexible. When your customer makes changes to their design, you're not going to have to rip out drywall to add speakers to rooms if we pre-wire that house correctly. And the way we're going to pre-wire that house is we're going to call it a home entertainment network.
And Jim, I want to tell everybody who's listening live, there is a chat box. So if you have any questions as we're going here, go ahead and type your questions into that chat box and we'll answer them as we go.
Okay, so what's a home entertainment network? Home entertainment network is basically everything that we already do in residential audio and video. It's whole house audio, it's a streaming network, it's a gaming network, it's a control automation network, it's video processing and distribution. It's also streaming from a single device to multiple areas of the home. And if you haven't figured it out, how do we do this? We use IT technologies, internet technologies, to do this distribution. There's a lot of advantages to this, and one of the cool things is for new things to our business being residential audio video, we invent and have to build a lot of this ourselves. That makes it expensive, and because we don't sell billions of units, we don't have the reliability of something that sells billions of units. But we are going to use your typical IT devices, switches, hubs, wiring. Because of that, it's super robust. I mean, there are billions of switches installed around the world. We're talking over switches right now. I mean, who knows even how many switches, because we're going through the internet. Lots. Very reliable, very robust system. So entertainment network infrastructure is really what we're talking about here, and it is IT. What's great about that is it is future resistant. It is extremely scalable, almost infinitely scalable, and it's super, super flexible. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to pre-wire a house, how to talk to your customer about it, and we're pre-wiring basically just with Cat 6A is what we're going to recommend. Fiber is also great. We'll talk a little bit about fiber, but when you properly wire the house for an entertainment network, that entertainment network becomes an integral part of the house. And let's talk about the way things are done now, right? You've got your family room, you've got flat screen over the fireplace, you've got a 5.1 system in there, you've got an AVR in there at some point. Well, when you go to change out that AVR, or you change out some of those components in there, particularly the speakers, what happens? You end up having to rip wires out of the walls. Or if your customer decides they want to add more rear channels or extend that audio field into the kitchen, which is adjacent to that family room, you have to tell them, yeah, we can do that, but we're going to have to rip up some drywall and change a lot of things here. With the entertainment network infrastructure, it's going to be like the electrical system, right? You plug that AVR into a wall outlet. When you upgrade that AVR or you change the purpose of that room and take that AVR out of the room, do you rip out the AC electrical system? No, of course not. Of course not. But the way we currently wire and do things, if we need to change things around in the house, we do rip out the AV wiring and put in new AV wiring as we change systems or upgrade. With the entertainment network, with that infrastructure there, because it's all IT, it's all Cat 6A cable, you don't have to change that. That stays in there. So when a new components go in, you can change the room. The customer wants to add speakers after the drywall's up, cool. If you're pre-wired and you've got Cat cable there, even if a whole addition goes on the side of the house, you can add a switch and add 30 more speakers back there without having to rip up any drywall in the current house. It's really a great system. Now we're talking about using IT devices there. Look, we're AV guys, we're not IT guys, right? We use some of the same components. What we do is create an experience from the data. We care about what that data looks like coming out of as light out of a display or sound out of speakers. IT guys, their job is just to move around a lot of zeros and ones. They're not really worried about the endpoint or the user experience. They're very different occupations, very different jobs. So as the AV guys, our job is to have that great experience, and IT is a tool. It's a means to the end, and it's a great tool. So what are the advantages of this entertainment network? Why do I want to do this differently? Well, first off, I said, it's flexible in the expandability. Security is a huge, huge issue with anything IT, right? Billions of dollars are made and lost because of security every year. So an entertainment network is more secure, and we'll talk about how to do that in a little bit. The wiring is also an investment in the home, right? So when the home changes, owner changes, usually all the AV is ripped out, new stuff gets put in. Doesn't have to happen here because, right, we've got that infrastructure that's just like that electrical system. We can plug different things in. We can plug a speaker into this system, and we have a speaker in the ceiling. We can take that speaker out. We can put in a PoE light, and we'll talk a little bit about that later too. So a dedicated home entertainment network is more reliable. It's future resistant. The scalability is amazing on it. It's also super flexible, and it's green. It's low power, which is green. Also, it ends up ultimately using less materials because we're not ripping this infrastructure out anytime the customer wants to make a change. We're also able to solve timing problems with streaming audio and streaming video through the house that you run into with every smart TV or Apple TVs or Rokus in every room. So what's cool about this, you talk to your customers about this, according to the National Association of Realtors, broadband service to the house is the second most important thing after the square footage of the house that new homeowners look for. So wow. The house doesn't even have to have that service, but if it's a fiber-based service, according to the National Association of Realtors, that house, if it has fiber available to the house, will sell for $5,500 more than a comparable house that doesn't have the ability to have fiber service to it. It's becoming such an issue that Washington State is requiring the type and quality of service on the MLSs when the house is listed. There are some municipalities and counties around the country that have started to do the same thing.
So are you fiber at home, Jim?
I am not. My utilities are underground.
So you live in the middle of nowhere, so.
I am, yeah. Well, across the street's fiber. They have two services across the street.
It's our building.
Wrong side of the street.
We get fiber here in this building, and we're downtown St. Pete, for those who might not know. And I live 2 blocks away. So I called them and I said, hey, I'd like to get fiber. And they said, what's your address? And I told them, and they said, oh, you're 1 block over, not far enough, 1 block. I was like, oh man. So no fiber for me, unfortunately, but I've had it before and it's awesome.
I have too. We had it at the old house, but the new big house does not have it. And it does hurt a little bit. I mean, our upload speed is not great. If I had fiber, our upload speed would be a lot better.
That's mine, exactly the same as mine. Decent download, not so good upload. Yep. That's funny.
Yep. So that's
1 block.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And
cool.
The consumers know it. And this is so, kind of as an AV dealer, integrator, it's important for you to know how important this is to our customers. They are interested in this. And sometimes IT is a bit out of our realm. If it's a really large house, the one
Oh,
percenters,
sure.
those houses are really more of a commercial industrial application. They have three-phase power
Sure.
going to them. They have multiple AC units and heating units through the house. In those houses, this might be out of your control, but in most of your installs, this is in our wheelhouse, in our control. And your system's going to work better. Your customer's going to have a better whole home experience by you taking over and doing this IT work in their house. And specifically with our products, MXNet makes that really easy with our switch management. Again,
Yeah.
we'll have a demo with that at the end. So big thing, second most important thing after the quality of service is how secure is it? An entertainment network is a lot more secure. So part of what's in an entertainment network is also best practices. So the FBI and Department of Defense both say basically every last thing that we do as AV people should be separated from your personal data, being your
Absolutely.
banking, and also your business data. So a lot of people have home offices. I happen to be in a home office right now. I can separate all my AVPro Global data from my kids' gaming systems and the IoT devices in the house. And I have done that. And
Smart.
it works great for security. And like I say, the FBI suggests to do it, Department of Defense. The EU Cybersecurity Agency says the same thing. And in the UK, I love this one, the Department for Digital Culture, Media, and Sports also recommends that all these devices be put on a separate network. Two, with this home entertainment network, we're going to run a lot of cat cable through the house. So we're going to have more wired connections than we are Wi-Fi connections. Wired connections are more secure. To hack into a wired system, you need to be wired in. If everything is Wi-Fi and going through there, it's easier for someone sitting outside your house to be able to hack into that system. So we're going to separate our Wi-Fi also. A separate entertainment network supports legacy devices, and that basically means stuff that's old that might not be secure or up to date. If there's nothing for anyone to steal or no personal information for them to see, it doesn't really matter if someone gets in and can see that your old treadmill that is an IoT device is sitting there. Who cares? Connected devices also tend to stay up to date better than Wi-Fi devices because the fact that they're connected.
Are you hardwired at home for a lot of your stuff?
Yes and no. I have a mesh network, and then I also have a MXNet 48 port switch that we are going through now that I have broken up into some VLANs.
Yeah, they the way my house is built, it's just tough because it's solid concrete. But the majority of everything's on a switch. Also, like you, then I've got some streaming audio speakers throughout, the bathrooms and things like that. Those are all on Wi-Fi. But the security is a great point too. If I'm doing anything sensitive, work-wise, where there's some stuff that we don't want to advertise to the world, I go hardwired. I'm hardwired at the office and as much as possible.
Yeah, I agree. And you do stream off your tablets and your phones a lot. I mean, I stream off my tablet. That's my bedroom
Sure.
TV. So I can do an hour,
Sure,
hour
sure.
and a half as I'm falling asleep with that. And by having less things on your Wi-Fi, and especially when you start streaming, you're just going to end up with better service flat out to it. And
Yeah,
since we
the
mentioned
system is
Wi-Fi,
much better.
Wi-Fi works as a hub, which means it's broadcasting. Every device
Mhm.
is getting that Wi-Fi signal. Even though the Wi-Fi is specifically speaking just to my tablet when I'm watching in bed, it's going to every other device in the house too. When you're hardwired,
Sure.
you're going through a switch, it's a one-to-one connection. So it's not just more secure, but it's more robust because you like to say, you keep the goats and the sheep separate, which is what work-life balance is we're talking about in this slide here. A separate computer network for your banking and business and your home offices is a big deal because everyone hates when you're on a conference call of some type or something like this, when the signal drops out, when it freezes.
Yeah.
By having
So
things
frustrating.
separated, you're going to end up with less data collisions, and you're going to end up with less dropouts and less failures, and that's a big deal.
Sure.
While we're talking about security, and we're talking about internet security, let's throw security cameras in there too. Ironically, security cameras are one of the most hacked devices out there.
Totally. Yep.
And you need to keep security cameras isolated from the internet. Now you have an NVR that might be connected to the internet, but the cameras are easily hacked into. The NVRs have much better security than the cameras do because it's software based versus just purely hardware based. So we're going to put those security cameras on a separate VLAN. In fact, when I do the VLAN demo at the end, let's do one and make one for the security cameras. But once we have a home entertainment network, we can see that front doorbell as a pop-up window in the program that we're watching, which is what we're showing right here. Basically, it's like a picture-in-picture that old televisions and flat screens used to have. We can create that with AV over IP and specifically our MXNet system. So when the doorbell rings, a little pop-up can show up in the corner of the screen and you can see who's at the front door. It's also a nice feature. It's more secure. You're also more secure in your house by being able to see more than you were before. You don't have to go to a special app and open it up to see who's at the front door.
You ever watch?
Audio advantages. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, a great example of what you just said. Have you ever seen those videos on YouTube where a guy will like scam a scammer?
Yes.
You ever seen those before? Yeah.
Yes.
So commonly, what you'll see in those is the person who's scamming back. They will get into their network, and then they'll get into their Wi-Fi security cameras, and now they can see what's going on in the room and everything. That's always how they get in, are cameras, every time.
Well, and as you know, if you've read the news, some security cameras were built with spyware already built into them.
Exactly.
Right, which is why you want to keep this separate. It's not just getting your data, right, but if the cameras are plugged into a network that is also connected to the internet, someone can hack in and see your cameras, or they can use that as a backdoor to get to the rest of your data. You know, it's like having your windows open through your house and going about your personal business. If you live in a city, right, there's always someone around. With your security cameras there, if they're not isolated, it's like getting dressed with your windows open. You're laying it all out there for everyone to see. Audio advantages for it. So whole home audio, and Jason's already talked about it. I've already talked about it. We love whole home audio. It is one of the greatest things to walk from my kitchen out to the deck or into the garage and have the soundtrack of my life, right, playing from room to room. And once we're on this system too, we're streaming from a single device, and AV over IP or audio over IP devices can be timed. So that means the speaker in every room will be timed exactly the same. So you're not going to have this weird delay from room to room, or be in the middle of two rooms and hear it playing in two, slightly out of phase from each other. Really cool. Once we have all this set up, the audio distribution system in the home works a lot better, and it is far more engaging. You're able to create larger soundscapes in different rooms. It's pretty cool. We have whole presentations just based off of that. Also, believe it or not, having a home entertainment network and doing AV over IP will also allow you to keep AVRs and some audio devices longer. Macintosh is a great example of this. Macintosh, and Jason, you have some in your office there too. They make great audio products, right? Now the video switching on them, they don't do 8K video switching. Some don't do 4K. Even the ones that just do 1080p for the surround sound, they still sound fabulous. But you need to upgrade that system if you want to get 4K or 8K through that AVR. With a home entertainment network, you're now opened up to all sorts of different types of distribution. So you don't have to use that AVR for video switching. You can use the home entertainment network and AV over IP for that video switching. So that will take care of your 4K and your 8K. And by the way, those wires in your wall, that Cat 6A we just talked about, we should be able to use that in one way or another for 8K. And we do it right now with 4K with our 10G systems.
You know what else I love about this too? I know you're an audio guy also, and I always say I'm a audio guy in disguised as a video guy. But you know, there's going to be some situations out there where somebody does put in some really nice speakers. You know, as you know, there's lots of really high-end in-wall speakers and ceiling speakers and whatnot. All of those really cool high-res audio formats from like Qobuz and Tidal and all those things all work with this. It's you're not audio-wise, you're not compromising.
No, which kind of brings us to the next slide. Thanks. Dante is one of those
Oh,
systems.
here we
So
go. Yeah,
Dante
here we go.
stands for Digital Audio Network through Ethernet, right? They came up with a cool acronym over there. And what Dante is it takes a signal that's already digital, right? Because we're distributing digital audio into the AVR in a bunch of different ways, either off HDMI or Toslink or coax. We're moving it around and switching it that way. It takes that already digital signal and it packetizes it for transport over IP, Internet Protocol. It doesn't change the resolution. It doesn't resample. It doesn't do anything to it except for put it in little packets so it can go through an IT switch. That's it. Very helpful though for us. It does
Jim, are
this
you
in
Apple?
uncompressed format. I'm sorry?
Are you Apple or Android?
Apple.
Doesn't Apple Music now do a lot of uncompressed stuff? I think they do. I'm pretty sure they do actually.
They do. And yeah, they do it. Amazon and
Oh, yes. And the only reason I ask is because like that's how common this stuff is getting now. You know, I mentioned before like Qobuz and Tidal, and those were always kind of like the sort of niche like audio nerd, you know, streaming services. But now Apple Music's doing it, and
Amazon,
more
Tidal,
are
and
getting
Tidal's
on
still
board.
doing it. And actually, the three we just mentioned, we'll talk about in a sec. We can do 3D immersive audio off of Apple, Tidal, and Amazon Music, and we can even distribute 3D immersive audio through the home in an entertainment network.
I thought for sure the first time I ever heard Atmos and music in the same sentence, and most of us probably thought the same. It was like, ooh, how's that going to work? You know? And man, I don't know if you've heard a really good music Atmos demo yet, like one that was actually mixed for Atmos and is proper. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, so I do Amazon Music here, which I'm going to
Yeah,
say it's not an endorsement. It's just kind of a necessity. I also do Tidal, but Amazon seems to have more Atmos, in my opinion, than Tidal does.
yeah.
They've got quite a bit of it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
So there is a lot of content out there for that. And that's what we're talking about, right? 3D immersive distributed through the house. And if we're doing this and we're just streaming from one source, again, it is timed perfectly to every room. And if you do something like, you know, an audio control 8-channel amp, they have a DSP built in some of their amps for every channel. So you don't need an AVR or something to equalize in there. The amp will have that DSP built into it. So you can tune that room, each room separately, if you put the proper amp in there that has the DSPs built in per channel. So that's
cool.
how this 3D immersive audio is going to work in different rooms, right, with different acoustics and quite frankly, probably with different speakers from room to room. They're not going to have all the same
Sure.
drivers, all the same speakers. So we're able to do this right now, and it is very cool. I would really like to do 3D immersive through my home. Next time it's time to paint the ceilings and the walls, I might have to do a little ripping up here to do some retrofitting.
So while you're in there.
Yeah. One of my favorite things with distributed audio through a home entertainment network is being able to see the on-screen display for whatever service I'm using. I enjoy that because sometimes, you know, through AI, I'll say, hey, play my favorites or play, you know, the soundtrack of my life, something like that. And the AI in the music providing service will say, okay, he likes music like this, he'll probably like this stuff. And I do hear new stuff that I like when it does start to pick music for me, but I have to go to an app or go to my phone and say, hey, what's that song? But if I've got it on, I can pop the TV on the room and I can see what's going on there, and I will watch to see what's coming up, especially when I'm cooking or doing something and I've got the music on. I'll have it up on the
Sure.
TV so I can see the display, see what the artist is and who did that song.
I like seeing the artwork, and I remember, I'm sure you do too, especially when CDs were new. I never knew the song title. I was like, oh yeah, the fourth song or the eighth song or whatever. So I think I'm getting better at it now, because for the last several years, we're looking at the album art and the song title and the credits even, and some of the music services provide lyrics. And it just reminds me of the old days when I was a kid, reading the lyrics on a Van Halen album, while it was playing. So this is all really cool.
Yeah.
Not only convenient, but super cool too.
Yeah, I mean, if you're into music, just playing your own stuff's great, but you do like to bring new stuff in from time to time. And again, if I don't
Yeah,
know who the artist is, I can't find them to play it again because I won't remember
right.
the name of the song or the lyrics. I'll have to figure out what that song is.
It's a cool
So
feature.
we're talking about digital distribution through the house. With the home entertainment network, we can actually also do analog distribution. We put the picture of the turntable up because you can take your turntable, do an analog to digital conversion, and there's a bunch of different ways to have that. I think we have 3 or 4 ways to do that in our line, with Dante, without Dante. We can do it with MXNet, we can do it with Dante. We can distribute that through the entire home at the same time. Now, yeah, you might want to do that, but then you're gonna have to run back to your record player every 20 minutes. I think this is where this is more important, is as you're expanding and you're integrating in an analog audio distribution system. And there are still a lot of legacy analog audio distribution systems. If you're upgrading that house, you're putting in a
Tons.
home entertainment network, you can still use that equipment and still use that through the house. Lighting, here's something new and you may not have thought of. PoE lighting, power over Ethernet lighting. So on that
We're
Cat 6
seeing it a
cable,
lot.
yep, we can do a lot of lighting. So I like making the example here I did earlier. I'll do it again. You've got a ceiling speaker in a room. It's the family room, and maybe you got a 5.1 system in there, and you're doing that with ceiling speakers. 10, 15 years go by, you don't want those speakers. You may not even want surround sound in there anymore. You go to a sound bar, but then you've got those speakers in the ceiling and the wall. What do you do with that? Well, the ones in the ceiling are easy. You can actually take those speakers out of the ceiling and put a lighting fixture in there and use the same Cat 6E cable for that lighting fixture, right? The systems are that flexible. Or you can do the opposite. You've got PoE lighting in the house. They put an addition off the back of the house. They want audio in that addition in the back of the house, but it wasn't pre-wired with the idea that there was going to be an addition there. You have PoE lighting in that ceiling. You've got that Cat cable there. You can use that Cat cable and put a switch out somewhere else and get audio distributed out through that room in the back. This is what we talk about, the amazing flexibility of these systems. And everyone's been to that point with a client where it's a new home build, the drywall's up, they've painted, and they want to make a change. They want to add or change something.
Oh,
Right?
yes.
Because everything's using Cat cable now. If you wired for a home entertainment network, you don't have to say no, or you don't have to say yes, but we need to rip up the walls. You will be able to repurpose that and expand that system. Really cool. That's probably my favorite feature as an integrator from the home entertainment network. Advantages to gaming too. So one of the things we talked about when we came up with this concept is we can have centralized gaming, which means we've got a game put in a rack somewhere, maybe in the home theater, maybe the main one in the family room. Once it goes in the home entertainment network, we can watch the gaming through every television in the house. Now, you probably don't need to watch your kids gaming or have people watch you gaming all through the house, but where this is cool, if we put dongles in the room, and with the home entertainment network, through various components that we sell, primarily MXNet, you can have USB connectivity through the same system. You put dongles in there, you can go from room to room with those controllers in your hand, and you can game in every room in the house. And what I like to say too, right here, I'm cooking, I've got kids, I've got my family room right off the kitchen. My kids are here, they're gaming. Maybe I'm doing a little gaming with them to make them feel good because they beat me every single time. Well, what happened recently is Sunday Night Football was about to come on. They're gaming, and their games can last a half hour. I said, hey, kids,
Oh, sure.
pause it. Go to a different room, and game from there, or go down to the basement and game from the TV down there. They're able to
That's
pause it.
so cool.
Same sweaty controllers that are in their hands, walk down to the basement,
Yeah.
game with it. And in our 10G system, there's zero lag, so it works super, super well. The 1G Evolution 2 system, it works well on too. So recently, I don't know if you caught this, Jason, Sony added PlayStation Remote Play to their Bravia line of televisions. So they're basically
Yes,
doing the
that's
same thing.
cool.
So you can go from room to room. If you
Yeah.
stay in the Sony ecosystem, you can go from room to room, have centralized gaming, go from room to room and play in these different rooms. That's pretty cool. So Sony's doing the same thing there. And now you can do that over Wi-Fi. Of course, you're better off to do that in a wired network, particularly with all that streaming going on. Again, like I say, no data collisions. We're going to keep our sheep and goats separate. Yeah, Sony does this too. By the way, we have talked to some people at Sony, and Sony likes the idea of a home entertainment network too. They think it's the right way to go.
Do you think the games that your kids beat you at, are they like newer, some of the newer, more modern games? Because I bet you could beat them at like Duck Hunt or the original Mario Brothers or Tetris or something.
I think you're overestimating me. I appreciate the compliment, but you are overestimating me. Yeah. Productivity. There's a whiplash, right? We're going from gaming to productivity.
Yeah.
You can create a more productive office in your home too with a home entertainment network, because we are talking about moving data around, and we mentioned it's more secure. You can also have your little command and control room up there too. You can have multiple displays up. You can have a couple news scrolls going on too. That's what I do here. Through my home entertainment network, I have a couple news scrolls going up in the background, so I can look up and see what's going on in the financial markets or see what's going on in the world. I find it very helpful, and it keeps me more focused and in one spot. So it is more productive for me. All your fitness equipment, those are IoT devices, Internet of Things devices, and man, oh man, definitely put these on a separate VLAN and keep this separate from your business personal information. Great way to hack into your systems right there. We talked a little about audio streaming, but there are streaming advantages across the board for audio and video both. Streaming data is different than business data or in emails, because just as the name implies, it's a constant stream going back and forth, primarily in. In this case, we're on a conference call, it's going out and back at the same time. Those are long streams instead of these spiky data packets. Those do run separately when they're on their own network, right? And just like with the video conference calls we mentioned, when I'm streaming a movie or streaming music, I don't want that dropping out or breaking up or dropping down to a lower resolution. That makes me nuts, because the sounds field will disappear, or my TV will all of a sudden look funny. The sound stage, I mean, will disappear. So when that's separated too, we end up with a more robust and a better running system. This I love is one Apple TV or Roku per, for every important occupant in the house. And my kids each have their own Apple TVs. I have one, my wife has one. The reason for it's this: I'm watching a movie, I get halfway through that movie, I go out of town on business. My wife says, hey, that's a cool movie. She watches that movie from the beginning. I get back, I can't get to the spot I left off in. It's gone. I have to scroll through that movie. And I got to be honest, 90% of the time, the movie's not worth it. And I won't scroll through to find it, and I'll just leave it unwatched. The other issue is with AI suggested content, audio and video both. If my kids are using one of my audio devices or my Apple and its suggested shows, their tastes in music and television are a lot different than mine. So especially my audio playlist, songs come up that I'm just going to have to skip, and it breaks the vibe. I got to find a device or find an AI device to speak to, get in a position to be able to get rid of that song that's on there. And then, I need to go hunt that song down and get it out of that playlist because the things I like it. But with one streaming device per occupant, yeah, that doesn't happen. Also, as you get into bigger houses, this becomes a big deal, because if you're streaming from every smart TV in the house, you are now maintaining the software on every TV in the house. And you're usually going across multiple brands. So they will have different software updates at different points in time, as well as every app having an update at a different point in time. And if you have a lot of TVs through the house, Apple lets you use, what is it, 5 now, I think, subscriptions at once. You can have 5 things streaming through an Apple TV or one Apple account at a time. You're going to eat that up pretty quick. I mean, even in my house, with the 4 of us, if I have guests over, I can get 5 different shows streaming pretty easily.
Oh, sure.
If you have centralized, that's not an issue. You can have multiple shows on these TVs around the house. Also, I can restrict separately what my kids watch versus what I watch by setting limitations on these different devices. And like in the basement where their playroom is, the games are and stuff, they do not have access to my Apple TV or my wife's Apple TV from there. They can get it in the family room if they really want to, but they're being supervised up there. In the basement, they're on their own.
That's cool.
Larger houses and estates too, if you have live-in help, you can give them their own systems and they don't see yours, they don't see what you're watching. It just keeps everything a little more private. Priority audio routing is very cool. And basically what that means, if you're watching a program on TV, you've got a home entertainment network, you don't have to listen to the audio program that for what you're watching. In this example that we have in this slide, we have 2 sporting events here, 2 games on. Through your remote control, you can switch to which one you're going to listen to at a time, right? Football is great for this. Sweet 16 basketball is good for it. You're watching 2, one heats up. You want to hear that one, but not the other one. Your system control, you can swap that instantly. Still watch both at the same time, but only listen to one at the same time.
I love listening to music while sports are on. I do it all the time.
Yeah, do it through that same system. Works great.
Yeah.
And, honestly, once we're into Dante and we can start doing crazy things with it, you can listen 4.1 to your audio in your 5.1 system and have your center channel volume down lower, which is where all the dialogue is coming from, right? So you're able to do really crazy stuff when we start getting into a large home entertainment network. Frame TVs are popular, right? Artwork on televisions. Huge. With a home entertainment network, any flat screen can be used for visual art too. And a lot of the major museums offer art subscriptions, and a lot of your clients are probably patrons of these museums and might have these art subscriptions too. You can have those out throughout the house, as well as showing your own photos, family photos. I'm a little more self-centered here. I'm a photographer, so it's my stuff that shows up on the TVs through the house when I want to do this.
Let's make sure your TVs are calibrated or your art and your pictures won't look right. Shameless plug, sorry.
Yeah, I've got some work to do before you come over then. Video wall and tiling processor. So in a lot of AV over IP systems, and of course MXNet, we have the ability for video walls. In our 10G system, we can do tiling too. The example we have here on the right with our AV over IP is we have all the security cameras for the house right there. The lady of the house here, she wanted to be able to see all the security cameras when she wanted. So they're all up on a single television set there, and then she can go back to the television and watch television. And there's a billiard room on the other side. They've got a video wall. You don't need a separate video wall processor. That's all coming through the MXNet system. It's all built in. Control and automation network too. So you're going to want to separate your control and automation. If you have Control 4 in there, Crestron, again, you're going to avoid these data collisions and you're going to have a lot more robust home. Also, you can switch from Savant to Control 4 or Control 4 to Crestron without having to rip out every last wire in the home if you have a large home entertainment network that's pre-wired in there. This also becomes important if you're an integrator that works with builders. When you set up a home entertainment network, this is a value add to the house. You talked about that. The builder is going to like that idea.
Sure.
But where it also comes into play is when that occupant moves. When that occupant moves and all that AV's in there, the builder or the previous occupant is going to tell them, hey, Go to this AV company. They're the guys that did it. They know what works. Well, everyone has different tastes and use for rooms. So there is going to be a lot of stuff ripped out. You don't have to rip everything out of the walls. This is where it comes in being a lot more green. And you can change. So you can even change over control systems now in a house without ripping out the wires. And you're able to accommodate these new people getting in, add new speakers to rooms, take speakers out of rooms, put televisions on different walls. Again, if you have that home entertainment network set up, everything becomes super flexible and super easy to do. You don't have to say no to your clients, or you don't have to say yes, but to your clients. It's fabulous.
I just saw one the other day on one of the online forums. It was actually an end user, and he said, "Hey, I just bought this house, and it had this control system in it, and now it's just a bunch of wires coming out of the wall because they ripped it out. What do I do?" And that's very common.
Oh, it's super common. It's super common. And some of these houses in better neighborhoods where the owners are CEOs or with bigger companies, they tend to move around from company to company or change houses fairly often. A lot of houses turn over quick, and being able to make everyone happy easily is a fabulous, fabulous thing. By using separate VLAN and putting your control automation on here too, it's going to be more robust again, data collisions. And we can also do some cool things that you might not think of, right? For system control, we don't like to use IR or CEC a lot. Why is that? Well, when you talk to one device, all the other devices can hear it, and they might get confused as who you're talking to. With an AV over IP system in our MXNet, we can send IR commands through the home entertainment network to just one specific device. The IR doesn't get broadcast out to the whole house, to every device. Same thing with the CEC command. We can send that to one single device on the network. It doesn't go to every device on the network, which means that the IR and CEC control are actually likely to work versus crashing the whole system as the houses grow. Video advantages. We are certainly a video-centric company here at AVPro. So we kind of get to this at the end. Audio and video distribution system. Home entertainment network with AV over IP is a matrix switcher. It's a distribution amplifier. It's an up converter. It's a down converter. We can change EDIDs. We can run test signals through here. We can scale sources individually per TV. So as we're doing whole home distribution, you've got 1080p TVs, 4K TVs, 8K TVs in the home. We can send 1080p to the 10p TV, 4K to the 4K TV, 8K to the 8K TV. We don't have to down-res everything to the lowest common denominator, so it all works. And then if you know anything about AVPro, we do a lot of EDID management. If you don't know what that is, we have classes on that. Lots of information online. Go to our YouTube page or go to our knowledge base on our regular website. Basically, we'll get rid of confusion there. Again, when multiple displays in the house, they all have different identifiers as to what kind of TV they are, what kind of signal they want to see. We're able to customize this to make sure everything works in a very robust and simple manner in the house.
It's so heartbreaking to me when you see a really nice TV with a really bad signal going to it. I was at a Chicago Blackhawks friendly restaurant here in St. Pete. Actually, the one I took you to.
I've been there. Yeah.
Yeah. They had, it's gone now, but for a long time, they had a Pioneer Elite Plasma. Probably came out of the owner's house or something. That was up there just showing football and whatnot. And, you remember that TV well. It was a really nice TV, but it was 480p stretched with bars on the top and bottom. It was just like, man, that's too bad, because it doesn't have to be like this.
We always go to car analogies, but it's like getting, a nice Porsche, like a classic, 911 GT2, GT3, right? Really a great car, but then you're going to take those tires off and you're going to put those little mini spares on it, right? So now you've got all this power, this great suspension, and you can't use it because you can't hook up to the road.
Potential.
It's the same thing. Yeah, same thing with your AV. We're able to get the most out of each individual little system in the house and not compromise the rest. Really a big advantage. And I did mention a couple times, right? AVPro Edge, our MXNet ecosystems, all the features I talked about and more are in these systems. obviously ours is a great system. Anyone's AV over IP can benefit from a home entertainment network. Even Sony's own system with their gaming throughout the house benefits through a home entertainment network. So a lot of what we're talked about for the security and making sure we don't have data collisions and data conflicts is based off of creating VLANs. Now, a VLAN is a virtual LAN. It's a LAN within a LAN. It is electronically separated in the same switch. So what I have in my office here, I have a 48-point switch, which is actually this one down here in the bottom. And I have it segmented off into separate sections for different uses. I have my MXNet system. I have a Dante system in there. I have my internet, which is a large portion of it. And then I also have a small control section on there. And I can do this graphically by clicking on features, creating names, adding features. I can add a port to a specific VLAN just by clicking. How this is normally done, it is normally done by going into the switch through command line interface with a special cable, and you're going to need PuTTY or CoolTerm or something, or terminal on your computer, and you're going to go in and you're going to write code to that switch to tell it where to make these divisions and create these VLANs. Great for an IT guy to do. They can do it. It is a second language. And this is a lot like we used to do in the old days when we had DOS operating systems before we went to Windows. With our MXNet system, and I'll demo that real quick, we're going to go basically from a DOS disk operating system to Windows. It's a graphical system. So we're doing that here. So this is our MXNet web page. You can access this remotely, or you can access this locally with our AV over IP system. And down at the bottom here, I'm going to click on switch management. I will maximize this. Oh, that is minimizing it. Again, I will maximize it. And we'll go to our switch management icon. We'll click on that and it'll bring up the switch. Now, I'm not connected to the switch. I can have multiple switches hooked up here. Right in this office, I have one. I'm going to highlight that switch, say connect. It turns green and I'm connected. Now, everything's going to be populated. We have a lot of data that comes through here that we can use when we commission the system. We can use this for maintenance. We can do preventive maintenance here. We can make sure we're not overtaxing the system. But I'm going to go to the VLAN administrator, and we're going to deal with just that right now. And I have these 4 VLANs. The default is MXNet, and that shows what ports I have MXNet on. I've got my Dante network, which is a small network here. My control network is also a small network, and my internet is a little larger VLAN that I have going on. Let's add a VLAN, and let's do one for security cameras. So how do we do that? Pretty simple. You're probably looking at the screen. You can figure it out. I'm going to say add VLAN. Oops. Sorry, I need to make it a number first. My mistake. I'm going to make this VLAN 50. I'm going to say add VLAN. That VLAN is going to show up. I'm going to highlight that, edit the name. There you go. Call it cameras. Change the name to cameras. So that name is now cameras. Now, if I click on that, I don't have any ports assigned to that VLAN because I just created it. So let me look at my notes to make sure. So we're actually communicating through this switch actively, so I can cut myself off if I'm not careful. But ports 25 through 36 are empty. So for my cameras, I'm going to start with port 25. So I'm going to scroll down to port 25, and I'm going to click Assign Port to VLAN. And look at that. Port 25 is in that VLAN. I'm going to go back down. I'm going to add 26. I'll do 27. And I'll just do 4 because you get the point here. Let's pretend I have 3 cameras in the NVR. So I'll go to port 28. I'll enter those. So I just created a VLAN for cameras. So I've got 4 there. So I've got my 3 cameras and then my NVR I can have there. That is all isolated from the internet. Now I can hook my NVR up to the internet if I want to look at that remotely, which I would do. But again, the security is much better through the NVR than it is the individual cameras themselves. That's all it takes to set up a VLAN. It's that simple. The last step you're going to want to do is hit Save Settings, say yes, and you save those settings, and you have everything right here. We can also download these settings and save them. So if something were to go bad in the house, if the switch were to die, and it has a 10-year no BS warranty, our famous AVPro Edge warranty. So after that 10 years, if 15 years later, if that switch does die, you can save everything, put a new switch in, download these back to that switch, as long as it's one of our switches, and you're gonna have those exact same presets. The other nice thing is you can take a look and do all this remotely too. So you pre-wired that house and you've got a room somewhere where there's nothing in that TV. You're pre-wired, you've got Cat 6 behind a plate in the wall. That Cat 6 might not even be plugged into the rack down in the basement or off wherever the rack is located in the house. You can send a tech there or 2 techs to hang that TV. They don't need to be your top techs. They don't need to be internet savvy. All they need to do is be able to find that cable, plug it into the switch, into the VLAN that is for that distribution, which in my system here, it would just be called internet. That's what everything is streaming off of. If they don't have any ports, they can just go to the internet, and let's say I had to use port 26, which I know I just put in my camera VLAN. I can go back to port 26, take port 26, hit VLAN, that is now active, and that's in the internet. They can now stream off that TV. You don't have to send your top tech there, and maybe you even do this remotely before they get there. It's great.
Jim,
Like I say,
I don't have a background in IT professionally. I don't have a background in, PC programming and command lines and the really deep dive stuff. So my introduction to VLANs, especially years ago, it was like, man, I will never remember this. I will never be able to do this. It was super intimidating and terrifying. And our mentor software, what you just showed, makes people like me not so scared to do this kind of stuff. It's so easy.
It makes it very easy. Well, that gets back to what we're talking about too, right? We're AV Pro, we're not IT Pro, right? Although we are IT pros at this point in time, we're not expecting our dealers all to be IT pros. We're going to let them stay good and concentrate on creating that experience for the customer. And that's a big deal. And that's a big difference. And we are unique in that we sell the switches, the endpoints, the encoders, the decoders, as well as Dante encoders and decoders. We have Dante built into amps at audio control. We have Dante built into our MXNet system, depending on the encoders and decoders you specify. We make that very easy. And if you do have a problem, you're not sure about something for setup, 1, we'll help you design the system. 2, if when you're putting that system in, you have a problem, you call our service guys. Every component in there, including the switch, is from us. So we're not asking you questions. What's in there, we know what's in there because we have that information in front of us, and we can tell you how the switch needs to be set up with our endpoints instead of, gee, I don't know. You need to call the switch manufacturer. It makes it a lot easier for our integrators too, and actually we found it saves us time because the entire ecosystem's ours. We can actually solve their problems on the phone with 1 phone call versus multiple phone calls. It's been very helpful.
Cool.
All right.
Well, good. I didn't see
up?
any questions. No, nothing came in. There was a couple during, but nothing really came up for the end. So that's awesome, Jim, and welcome to your first AV Pro webinar. You did a great job. And thanks for all the information. And yeah, we're going to post this on YouTube in the next day or so in case anybody who's listening, if they wanted to share the information and share the video. So stay tuned for that. And I also want to mention too that for 2024, we're planning a lot more trainings than we ever have before. And thanks to Jim and his help especially. So keep your eyes peeled for our websites and for our social medias, because we are going to be traveling around all over the country doing these home entertainment network trainings and these MXNet trainings. We've got some new HDMI trainings that we're going to be doing this year. There's lots and lots of cool stuff. I know you guys love those events. So we'll be doing them here in Florida. We'll be traveling. Just keep your eyes peeled for all those dates and whatnot. In fact, you can go to the website now and see what we've already got planned. But yeah, we're excited to see everybody. And again, thank you, Jim. Any final words?
Yeah, I'd like to say with those trainings, we are here to solve problems. And a lot of what we go over doesn't just apply to just our products. It applies across the board because we want to make you a better integrator. We want to make your lives easier as an integrator. And we will make sure we solve other people's problems too, which is really kind of how the company started with our test instruments. But that is still in our culture. And when you attend our trainings, it will make you better with anyone's equipment, not just our equipment. It's not a sales pitch, it's a real training.
Yep, that's our number one feedback, is that, wow, we actually learned something and we learned a skill coming out of this. It's very cool. We're very prideful of that, but that's what we do. Yeah, exactly. I mean, come on. that's always the hard part, is how much is this going to cost me? But when you tell them it's going to be a big fat zero, they get really excited. So, you know, guys, like I said, just keep your eyes peeled for dates and locations. And again, if you wanted to take a peek now, we already have several scheduled, so go take a look. Jim's going to be in California at By Design. We're going to do one here. I mean, there's tons. So take a look, keep your eyes peeled, and come to some trainings. They're super fun. Cool. All right, Jim. Well, thanks again, and we will see you next time.
All right. Bye.